3 days doing this, and everything changed. The cycle that once felt eternal simply broke. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a punishment. It was something different. And now you're here, trying to understand what happened. Maybe because you felt the same thing. The desire came back, strong, silent, and you gave in. But right after that, it came the emptiness. That strange silence no one can explain. The guilt that burns without leaving any visible marks. The promise made for the 1,000th time. Never again. But only a little time passed, and everything returned. As if something greater was controlling this endless cycle. What if that's true? What if this desire isn't only yours? What if what you're feeling is actually a frequency? A code that was implanted? Few people notice it, but the enlightened ones feel it, and you did. Maybe that's why you're hearing this right now. It's not a coincidence. It's not weakness. There's a reason this is happening to you, but it's not the one you think, and only those who stay until the end understand. You know this cycle. It begins with an impulse, an inner calling that feels impossible to ignore, and for a few moments, you give in. The mind goes quiet, the body feels grateful, but then comes the fall, the guilt, the weight, the disconnection, and then you make a promise. You tell yourself it will be the last time, that this time will be different, but it's not. Because before you even realize it, everything is back. The same desire, the same surrender, the same pain. This pattern isn't random. It's not just psychological. It's something that drains your energy, your will, your presence. It leaves you empty inside, but on the outside, no one sees it. You still smile, you still keep going, but inside, something is tired. Something is giving up. It's like being stuck in an invisible loop. And with each repetition, you drift further away from who you truly are. And the most subtle part is, cycle knows how to hide. It disguises itself as habit, as pleasure, as relief. But deep down, it's draining you. And you feel it. You think you're the only one, that something is wrong with you, that no one else is fighting this silent battle. But that's not true. There is a group of people who feel more, who fall and rise again, who try to resist, but seem to be tested every single day. And no, that's not weakness. That is spiritual sensitivity. It's the mark of someone who carries something greater. You are one of the enlightened. And maybe no one has ever told you that, at least not so clearly. But now is the time to remember. Feel deeply because you were chosen. Because you carry a light that disturbs invisible forces. And the greater the light, the deeper the shadow that tries to extinguish it. If this is resonating with you now, it's because you're exactly where you need to be. You didn't get here by chance. You were brought here. And even if you don't understand how or why, something inside you recognizes this truth. You are not broken. You are awakening. And everything starts to change the moment you accept that. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. It only needs to divert your energy. All it takes is for you to get distracted, to hand over your strength to something that feels like pleasure, but leaves you empty inside. The attack was never direct. It has always been subtle. The desire itself was never the problem. What they do with it, that's the trap. Because when desire is manipulated, it stops being creative energy and becomes a prison. You start living from impulse to impulse, thinking you're in control, but you're being steered. Your energy, which could be used to create, to heal, to transform, is being spent in a cycle that gives nothing back. And the more you give in, the less strength you have to even notice. Until one day, you wake up tired for no reason, confused, disconnected, still not understanding why. It's because your energy isn't being destroyed. It's being redirected with precision. And you can feel it. There are 3 invisible triggers that keep this cycle alive. And they repeat with perfect rhythm. The first is instant pleasure. It comes quickly, seems harmless, and relieves the tension. But the price shows up afterward. Because nothing that burns that fast can stay without leaving ashes behind. The second is programmed guilt. It doesn't come from within you. It was implanted. A heavy feeling that shows up right after the pleasure, as if it had been waiting, as if it were following a script. The third is isolation. After guilt, comes silence, distance, the sense that no one would understand, that you need to hide, and that weakens you even more. 3 triggers repeat in silence: pleasure, guilt, loneliness, and in the end, another cycle closes. You promise it will be the last time, but it returns, because the triggers are still in place, and as long as they are, everything repeats. After you fall, something deeper than guilt arrives. It's an absence, a silence that isn't just emptiness, it's lack. You try to pray, you try to focus, but you feel something has pulled away, as if the connection had been cut, as if you were speaking, and no one was listening. The intuition that used to be clear starts to falter. The heart that once beat with direction now feels lost. You feel far. From God, from yourself, from your purpose. It's not punishment. It's energetic consequence. It's like something within you is dimmed. Like the presence that used to guide you has stepped back. And that hurts more than guilt ever could, because you feel it. Not with your body, but with your spirit. And the most devastating part is realizing that no one around you sees it. But you do. And you can't fake it. Because something inside you knows you're no longer whole. There's something that doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't feel like just a normal desire. It's not just physical. It's deeper, more persistent, heavier. You start to suspect, because you sense it's not only yours, that it carries a weight that doesn't belong to you, an urge that doesn't feel natural but programmed. You try to resist, but it comes back. You try to run, but it changes shape. Sometimes it's desire. Sometimes it's distraction. Sometimes it's exhaustion. But the feeling is always the same. Something trying to pull you away. And no matter how much you fight, it feels like you're not just battling a part of yourself. You're fighting something operating behind the scenes, something invisible. You feel like there's a game being played, but you don't know the rules. Or who's playing, you just know that. If you keep going like this, you're going to lose yourself. And that feeling is the beginning of revelation. Because no one questions the game when they're winning. Only those who lose too much begin to see. You've spent your life believing it was just desire. That the force pulling you was just instinct, weakness, impulse. But now you're starting to see that it's not that. It's not just desire. It's creative energy, a deep, ancient, sacred force. The same impulse that can generate life can also imprison you if it's manipulated. And that's exactly what's been happening. That energy is the foundation of your ability to create, to heal, to transform, to connect. The spark that drives the enlightened. And because of that, it's also the most targeted. Because if they can divert it, you get lost. You burn out. You weren't fighting against desire. You were fighting to reclaim your own strength, your own light. What you call temptation is actually the redirection of what makes you whole. And now, everything starts to make sense. It was never about resisting. It was about learning to use it. What you were feeling was your energy trying to return to its rightful place. And the suffering was the sign misdirected. You are not weak. You are a source. And that's why you are attacked. From a very early age, you were taught to waste your own light. No one said it with words, but everything around you was shaped to pull you away from yourself, to turn your energy into distraction, into fleeting pleasure, into silent guilt. You didn't notice. No one does, because it's subtle. It lives in habits, in routines, in the small choices that seem normal, but little by little drain your essence. This sabotage is not new. It's ancient, millennia old, and it didn't start with you. It was passed down, implanted, reinforced for generations. Because an enlightened one who wastes their energy is harmless. They lose clarity. They lose strength. They lose their purpose. But when you begin to see that, something changes. You start questioning what you used to call normal. And what once felt like a habit now feels like theft. And that's where liberation begins. When what seemed harmless is finally seen for what it truly is. An ancient trap. One that's time to break. Something starts to shift, not on the outside, but inside. It's as if, for the first time, your energy is coming back home. You don't yet know exactly what to do, but you feel you can do something. An invisible decision begins to rise. Like an impulse that doesn't come from desire, but from awareness. Guilt begins to lose its grip. The weight is still there, but it no longer pulls you down. You start breathing differently, thinking differently, seeing with more clarity. This isn't willpower, it's energetic reversal. What once spilled outward now begins to spiral inward. And even if you don't know what the next step is, you can feel the path forming. It's no longer about resisting, it's about reorganizing. And little by little, what once was instinct becomes intuition. What was impulse becomes presence. And what was a prison begins to look like choice. But now, you are positioned. And that changes everything. 3 days. Just that. But for some reason, this simple idea begins to resonate inside you. 3 days doing something no one ever taught you. Something that seems small, but changes everything. You still don't know what it is, but you can feel it's near. Something is aligning within, as if a part of you already knows the path and has simply been waiting for the barely of ascensions. Right moment to reveal it. Why 3 days? Why does that number pulse so strongly now? Because it's the amount of time needed to reverse the frequency, to break the cycle and reprogram the direction of your energy. But listen closely, this is not about stopping. It's not about fighting. It's about doing something subtle, internal, precise. Something that breaks the pattern quietly. And the most powerful part is that the enemy doesn't know how to respond to that. Because when an enlightened soul acts with intention, it steps out of the script, and the cycle begins to break. Now you're going to discover what happens in those 3 days. On the first day, you do nothing. And that is already everything. You don't act. You don't run. You don't try to suppress. You simply observe. When the impulse comes, and it will, you don't move. You breathe. You feel. And you stay. Not like someone fighting against themselves, but like someone silently witnessing the repetition of an old pattern. The energetic field around you begins to shift. Because for the first time, you're not feeding the cycle. You don't hand over your energy. You don't speed up. You don't give in. And you don't punish yourself. The desire is not ignored. It is seen. Without judgment, without rush, like a presence that shows up, but no longer commands. On that first day, you are telling your body, your mind, your soul, I see you. And just that already breaks an invisible bond. It is in the silence that the frequency starts to change. Because what holds you begins to lose power when it no longer receives a reaction. On the second day, the energy is still there. But something has already shifted. It no longer screams. It pulses. And now, instead of resisting, you move. You write. Even if you don't know what to say, you breathe with intention. Even if it's in silence, you create something small, simple, yours. The desire that used to drag you down now begins to take shape. Word, movement, art, what used to be an impulse, now becomes expression. You're not trying to defeat the desire, you're redirecting it, channeling the force, converting the tension into presence. And in that process, without even realizing it, you begin to activate your soul. Because the energy that used to push outward are. On the second day, you don't just resist, you build, you plant, and the cycle begins to break. Because the energy has returned to you. On the third day, something completes itself. The energy that once pulled you downward is now quiet within you. And for the first time, you feel that you can do something with it. It's no longer about you, not anymore. Now it's about others. You give. A gesture, a word, a real presence. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be real. You serve. Without expecting anything in return. You give your energy with intention. And in doing so, you plant an invisible seed in the field. This is where the cycle breaks. Because what once was consumed inside you now becomes light outside you. This is when the energy begins to flow again. You may not notice it right away, but something shifts. The weight that always came after doesn't arrive. The guilt doesn't show up. And in place of the emptiness, a quiet peace is born. On that third day, the enlightened one understands that victory doesn't come from controlling desire. It comes from the power it holds. And when that power becomes service, the spiritual realm responds. Because something has been planted that the enemy cannot touch. A seed that broke the cycle. Something changed. And it's not only inside you, it's in the field. The people around you begin to look at you differently. Maybe they can't explain it, but they feel it. Your presence is stronger. Your gaze, quieter. There's something new in you and you feel it too. Intuition, which once felt muffled, begins to pulse again. Subtle insights return. The signs become clearer. The answers come with less effort. And the most curious thing is that you're not trying to prove anything. You simply are. You occupy your own space with more truth, more ease, as if you've returned to a place that was always yours. This is the reflection of energy that is no longer being drained. It's circulating, flowing, vibrating differently. The cycle no longer controls you. And even if it tries to come back, now, something in you recognizes the pattern. And that awareness already changes everything. Don't think it's over. The cycle will try to return, but now, it will come differently. Softer, more subtle. Because it knows it can't dominate you the same way. It will try to disguise itself as distraction, as fatigue, as emotional need. It will come through the edges, not the center. And if you're not aware, you might mistake it. You might think it's just a hard moment, just an innocent escape. But behind it, the old pattern will be waiting for an opening. This isn't a reason for fear or guilt. It's just the nature of energy. It tends to return to what it knows. But now, you are aware. And that awareness is your new protection. Not against desire, but against automatism. You don't have to conquer everything. You just have to recognize when it returns. And choose again. Choose with presence. As one who is enlightened. As someone who already knows what they carry. You didn't eliminate the desire. And you didn't have to. What changed was the relationship. It stopped being a prison and became a bridge. Now, you feel the energy coming, but you no longer get lost in it. You observe, you breathe, you guide, because something inside you has been rearranged. That force which once seemed to control you now responds to you, and not because of suppression, but because of mastery, awareness, alignment. To be the master of your energy is not to live without desire. It's to know where to guide what once dominated you. You have become a conductor, a guardian, an alchemist. And because of that, you are no longer an easy target. What once pulled you down now lifts you upward, inward, forward. And every time that energy returns, you use it, you build with it. Because now, it serves your purpose, not the other way around. This is the moment when the enlightened one becomes unshakable, because they know who they are, and they know what they carry. Now that you've felt your light return, a new phase begins. Because when an enlightened one rises, the field around them begins to move, and not everything that moves comes in peace. Your energy has changed, and that has consequences. You've reclaimed your space, and that presence, once dimmed, now shines. Quietly, but unmistakably, and the unseen feels it. Some forces don't want you to stay grounded, because you anchored, aware, and awake are dangerous to the system that once fed off your exhaustion. But now, you know who you are, and you know what you carry. You are no longer a prisoner. You are a guardian, a master of your own frequency, and that light you've reclaimed must be protected, nourished, directed, because it's beginning to disturb what once controlled you. So get ready, because the next move is no longer within, it's outward. And what comes next reveals why the enlightened are watched. But that is a story for the next video, and you will understand. Because once someone awakens, they never go back to sleep.